Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So tonight's analysis video is different to and different from all of the videos that I've done on the channel, because this is 3 days old, this particular analysis that I'm doing. I was initially asked to take a look at Marty Pellow and some of his live performances, and Marty you might know from Wet Wet Wet, I think back in the 90s, certainly a voice of my youth. But the person made this request because they thought that maybe Marty was miming live, and they actually said this about some of the performances over on maybe a Facebook fan page, something like that, and you can imagine the response wasn't particularly positive to those comments. So I had the performances and I did an analysis looking at both of those performances, comparing them to see exactly what was going on. I'd done the whole video, I pretty much finished it off, and it was then time to do some editing, but there was just something about these two performances at a particular point that I had to get to the bottom of, because I'd never seen anything like it on my channel, to the point where I did lots of other research and looked at other performances, hence why the analysis has taken a couple of days. And just to give you a quick look at the screen capture of the analysis that I did previously, I was sent these two files from 2024 and 2023, and I was looking at those, and this is just the video data and the audio data at the bottom here. And you can see that I've also got another one up here, which is another performance that was Wet 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 in 2019, and then I've got another one here from 2025, and that was only last month, November. And then I've got another one up here which wasn't even written down as having a date. There's another one up here that I looked at as well. So I started to get all of this data together to try to get to the bottom of what was going on. So the reason for all of this, the culprit, was this particular part of the performance in 2023 and 2024. I've got them both on screen because when I was looking at these, I thought, well, there are parts here that look really similar from one performance to the next. And in my analysis video, I did drag the lines to pitch like that. And I did say that you can see there are obvious differences here, but they are really close. And I always say in my analysis videos, it's impossible to sing over your vocal lines twice, because that's the whole reason that double tracking works as a technique, because you can't replicate it perfectly twice. And when we're looking at these lines, I know that people will say, well, yeah, that they clearly don't go over the top of each other, but there are little points here that I thought, well, this is really close. And as much as the data says it's not the same vocal, I couldn't let it lie because I thought, if this is indeed another vocal, this performance and Marty Pellow as a vocalist has to be beyond doubt the most accurate vocalist and what I would say the most consistent live performer that I have ever seen across all of my years of analysis videos. And when I filmed this all previously, I did go through the two pitch graphs and showed all the differences, that the lines weren't going over the top of each other. But if anything, you can see like it almost shifts across and down a little bit, because these are two totally separate performances. So wherever you look on this pitch graph, it changes. But when we have a listen to it, I'll play these back at the same time. Say I'm not so systematic. When I'm down, I'm in manual. And time on time again, I'm going by with the look of love. And wait, don't change your life. Whoa, whoa. You set me on fire, baby. So you can hear how precise that vocal is and how similar it sounds. I even panned one left and panned the other one to the right, because that was part of me just diving into it in a little bit more detail to try to hear differences in timing. But when we do look at the lines on screen, of course, some parts look really similar, and this is why, you know, I've jumped into it in so much detail, but they never quite go over the top of each other when you're looking at the lines. But because the vocals are so similar, this kind of thing here, the C#4 and the C#4, we just get this little flattening out here and a similar kind of thing here. So yeah, they can start to look very similar from left to right. So I also looked at the other 4 performances that I had of this particular song, and it was really just the same case, that nothing was matching up. There weren't lines going over the top of lines. So I know people are thinking, well, why is this so unique? It's because of how closely Marty can repeat this vocal, not only night after night, but year after year. And the important thing to mention is that the song is being played at least to a click, and it might be a backing track there that's got kind of elements on there that work with the live band as well, but the timing is exact in every single performance. So this is why the vocal from a timing perspective can be so accurate, and why I've been requested to take a look at this, because if you're listening to this, we're listening to the isolated vocal, so we're hearing it in even more detail. But if you're just listening to 2 performances where the band sound exactly the same in terms of the timing, and there might be elements on a backing track, and then Marty's producing this vocal that is so close that it looks similar on pitch monitoring software. It's not exactly the same, but it looks similar. That means it's going to sound to the human ear identical, because we can't see the details that we can when we put it through pitch monitoring software. So it will sound exactly the same, and that's probably what the person who requested this video is hearing, and they might have done what I've done, isolate the vocals. They might not have panned them left and right, but even if they did, they would listen to it and think, oh well, that's the same vocal. But until you get the pitch data on screen, then we can see that, yeah, things don't go over the top of each other. And just to show you how close, I have zoomed in now, and again, this is going to prove the point that you can't sing over your vocal lines twice in a row perfectly. But look how close it is, because you can just see the other line here, and the thicker line, or the fuller line, just to the left of it. The timing is absolutely spot on, and we just go a little bit flatter here, but again, this timing is so close. You can see more of a gap here, and look at the way that the vocal comes down and loops around and does the same thing here, but on a different pitch. And then we hit a different pitch here, and let me move up. Again, this part that looks really similar, we're just a slight bit later there, we come down. This bit is so similar. It's a little bit later, but the pitch is a little bit flatter. But even the look of this particular section, and this is what I looked at for a very long time, it looks really similar, but it's not identical. When we come down, again here, timing really close. We've got quite a big difference here. Maybe we match here a little bit, but then we've got differences as we kind of go through there. I'm just going to move this across. A lot of differences on that part, and then here, even still, this is matching really closely. And look, this line actually does go over the top of the other line, but it ends in a different place and then is timed differently at the end there. So we're not getting full phrases going perfectly over the top of each other, because that's what happens when it's the same audio file, but we're getting, for maybe 3 or 4 milliseconds, points at which it does cross over. So we're going to be taking a look at a performance from Edinburgh Castle in July of 2025, and a performance from, I think, recently, maybe last month, 2025, because it's the magic of Christmas, that's what it's called, and we're just into December. So we're going to be listening to the isolated vocals. I have synchronized the performances. The backing is always the same tempo, so all of that will match up, and this is why the vocal is so perfectly timed. But then again, even singing to a backing track, singers will still drift now and again, but you'll start to hear I think in the beginning, a little bit of variation, but then when Marty locks in, yeah, you'll be amazed at what this sounds like.
I feel it in my fingers, I feel it in my soles, yeah.
And here we've got a different ad-lib between these performances, but with the request that came through, the person was saying that Marty was only miming particular parts of songs and that other parts were live. So in this particular case, it might have been the theory that it's a pre-recorded vocal, but he does the ad-libs in between those vocals in order to make it sound live. But we'll listen on. And I just want to mention that when that is the case, that somebody's not really singing live and they're lip syncing or miming, but that the mic is on, more often than not, and I'd say in probably all of my analysis videos so far, when they come in with an ad-lib between the recorded parts, there's a different sound on the mic, and you can hear that it's EQ'd differently because it's not the same recording that you're hearing outside of those ad-libs, and sometimes even the volume will be dramatically different. So yeah, even in those cases, it's quite easy to tell because of the change in mic sound. But in this particular case, if I maybe get rid of one of the performances, we'll listen to this one.
In my fingers, I feel it in my soul.
That humming into the mic is so consistent with the rest of the vocal, just the way that it sounds. So I'll let this play on.
Love is all around me, and so the feeling grows. It's written on the wind.
So what I want you to listen out for is how synchronized this is with Marty's vocal.
It's everywhere I go. Yes, it is. So if you really love me, come on and let it show. Come on and let it show now.
I mean, I'm not surprised that I was asked to look at this because, yeah, so many parts about it. I guess people would never think that you could sing it this well and this accurately, time after time after time after time, year after year after year. But I'm going to let it play on.
You know I love you, I always will. My mind's made up by the way that I feel. There's no beginning, there'll be no end.
I mean, he does everything exactly the same way. Listen to just the breath here.
My mind's made up by the way that I feel. There's no beginning.
The breath, or should I say kind of the rest between beginning and leaving that gap there. He does that every single time.
There'll be no hell, 'cause of my love, you can leave her.
And there we have our first clue that these are totally separate live vocals. Because, and this is something that is almost impossible to nail when you're holding a note to then end that at exactly the same hundredth of a second, because that is really just going with the feel of how long you're holding that note for and the band. So you can hear Marty finish at two separate times in these two separate performances. So just listen out for it again.
On my love, you can't depend.
And then, yeah, obviously that talking, total kind of freedom to it in that part of the song. And with the rest of the song, because the melody is so strict and that phrasing is so strict, that's why it's just So spot on. I'm going to run it forward.
I see your face before me
Because now he's just locked in again.
as I lay on my bed. Yeah. I kinda get to thinking of all the things you said. Oh.
And here, again, it's amazing when we're kind of listening to it, getting into the details, because I'm going to just listen to one. So here we've got this vibrato, and Marty's got this wide vibrato, which, by the way, is so consistent as well. He just relaxes into it, and it happens at exactly the same rate. Not exactly the same, and I'll show you that later, but when you're listening to it, it sounds like it's exactly the same. So that's another just consistency in his voice, that he's always going to relax into the same speed of vibrato. But getting back to this, have a listen.
Of all the things you said.
He's kind of there and applies vibrato. What I'm going to do is bring on the other performance. Listen to now the end. Said. And he just dips down at the end of that line. He actually kind of goes down the semitone with that vibrato. But what's crazy about it, when we hear it together,
the things you said. Oh, yes, I did.
but that ever so slight change in pitch just at the end of a vocal phrase, and that's the only part really that's noticeable. That's how people, I guess, will have to be able to determine whether it's a live vocal or not. They're listening for tiny changes that in a live performance you'd never hear. So when somebody goes to see Marty Pellow live, and they might go to a couple of performances, yeah, they quite legitimately will say it sounded exactly the same on both nights. But that's not because it's a pre-recorded vocal and it's being mimed or lip-synced. It's because it will sound exactly the same, because Marty's doing exactly the same thing. And if you're trying to hear differences, you would have to spot this.
Oh, yes.
Just that little bit flatter with the end of the vibrato. So anyway, yeah, I mean, you can listen to this. I'll let
You gave your promise to me, and I give mine to you. Yeah, yeah.
So all of these exits from phrases, it might seem like it's something that he's just doing on the night, but he's doing it every single time. That's why this is so precise.
I need someone beside me, and
He just threw in an extra repeat there on one of the performances.
everything I do.
And again, that's the kind of thing that, I mean, he might have to start doing this so that people know it is definitely live, just throwing in a repeat of a phrase to show.
And everything I do now. Come on, Polly. You know I love you, I always will.
So anyway, it's going to be like this for the whole performance. And yeah, we're already quite a ways into it. Let me just move it forward. We'll jump all the way to here.
Oh, yeah. So if you really love that, come on and let us know. Come on and let it, come on and let it, come on and let it, come on and let it show.
So he's still absolutely nailing this now towards the end of the song, and something like this that you think, well, might be an ad-lib is absolutely going to be the same every time. And now jumping into the pitch data for this performance, again, have a look from left to right at these two totally separate live vocals and how similar they do look. There will be tiny differences, like here kind of being between the lines, but here ending, perfectly on the D4. But this is the most accurate replication of a vocal that I've ever seen. Obviously, it's not going to be perfectly over the top of itself twice, because that's impossible. But we are talking about getting so close So let me just try and get this in the right place. And what you'll find is, like here, for example, this slide up. If I now try and match that over the top, like that, then you'll see that the other lines will start going out of time. But again, this line here, I can move this off to the right, we're getting exactly the same kink in that vocal. If I'm being strict about it, yeah, it isn't actually perfectly, it's kind of one is dissecting another, and you can kind of move it across a little bit to try and force it to go over the top. So here, coming down, look how close we are here, and that's the C4, as we move down, again, look how close we are there, and coming up here, yeah, this line perfectly over the top, but then, yeah, change in timing and pitch here, and again, change in timing more dramatically up here. And as we kind of move our way down, you can see now that the timing's off. But, and when I said about these two lines actually don't go perfectly over the top of each other, they kind of intersect each other here and kind of cross over just at this point here and this point here, but then the timing's different. But again, look down here for this pitch being ever so slightly sharp and then ever so slightly flat. It is absolutely crazy, that this data. So, I mean, I just had to do another video. I also thought about pitch correction. I thought, well, could there be a backing track that's being used that could be pitch corrected as well? But even with that theory, the timing doesn't make sense. Why is the timing ever so slightly off on particular parts of the phrase? Because pitch correction would just be moving the notes. It would still all be perfectly in time. So, yeah, I went through a lot of theories, and obviously I tried to eliminate every single possibility. And I mean, in the end, all that's happening is what I do in all my videos anyway, which is rely on the objective data. The objective data said that it wasn't a lip sync performance, it wasn't the same audio file, that there were differences. I wanted to know why, and the why is Marty Pellow. It's his ability and how closely he can replicate his vocal. It's almost unbelievable, but I can believe it because I'm looking at the data. And I can see the differences, but yes, still just on a totally different level. So anyway, keep those requests coming to requests@wingsofpegasus.com. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!